What up? And welcome to Operation Murder It Out. Gonna be doing some basic maintenance on Milkshake. I'm getting a pulsation in the brake pedal every time I hit the brakes, so I'm gonna be replacing the brake pads and rotors. I did the driver's side last night, gonna be doing the passenger front today. Hopefully this side goes as smoothly as the driver's side, because every time I work on this car, something breaks. So I'm gonna get the tire off the ground, take the tire off, and then get started on pulling everything apart. All right, tire's off the ground. Let's get the lug nuts off. Like I was saying earlier, every time I work on this car, something breaks. So far, what I have done to this car is replace the engine. I have replaced the engine, replaced the AC compressor, replaced the radiator, condenser, replaced the starter. Right now I'm replacing the brakes. Sooner or later I'm going to replace the rear sway bar links. And I've done a thermostat. I believe my last video was about the thermostat. Changing my camera angle just a little bit. So now that the wheel is off, I have to remove the caliper. Once I remove this portion of the caliper, the brake pad comes off. Once that comes off, this portion of the caliper comes off, and then I will be able to get the rotor off. The other side didn't have this. I hope that comes off easily. But some of these struggles that I've been dealing with this car, the engine, when I was trying to remove it from the car, I accidentally broke the radiator. And I did that by trying to separate the engine from the transmission with a giant pry bar, and I accidentally leaned the pry bar a little too far forward towards the front of the car, and I snapped off the part of the radiator where the upper radiator hose goes. And so ended up having to replace the radiator, and in the process of trying to replace the radiator, the condenser started to fall apart. So of course I had to replace that as well. Once I put the vehicle all back together, and condenser was in, radiator was in, I put coolant in, everything was going fine, started it up, engine was running smoothly, and then all of a sudden I see a whole bunch of white smoke coming from the front of the motor. And so when I looked, I saw that the power steering line was leaking. And it was leaking pretty bad. It was spraying all over the oxygen sensor and the air-fuel ratio sensor in the front of the motor. So ended up having to replace that because those sensors went bad. And not only did those sensors go bad, but the rear sensors were not reading. So I had to replace those sensors as well. Oh, but yeah, had to replace the rear sensors as well. So I had to get 4 new sensors, and in the process of replacing the rear sensors, one of the sensors cross-threaded into the catalytic converter. Tried my best to remove it without damaging the cat, but ended up completely taking the threads out the cat. So I had to replace the cat. So as you can see, things just keep breaking every time I work on this car. But luckily for me, last night, the driver's side came apart real easy as far as the brakes go. And still going smooth so far, still early into the job. But hopefully these bolts do not break and I am able to get everything off with ease, just like the driver's side. Been driving this car officially for about 4 weeks now. First 2 weeks being test drives, and then the 2 more recent weeks. Drove for a week in my hometown, then took a 2-hour drive to visit my uncle. Drove 2 hours back, so 4 hours total. The engine did really good. Transmission was shifting just fine. So now I'm just doing minor fixes. The last minor fix I did was the AC compressor leak. Oh, come on. It's going the wrong way. There was a leak coming from an O-ring on the AC compressor, and it should have been very easy. Should have been able just to remove the AC line and replace an O-ring, but instead what happened, the bolt head snapped off in the compressor, and I had to remove the compressor, drill out that bolt, make new threads, and find a new bolt. All right, that's off. See if the caliper comes off. Well, it's moving. All right. So far, so good. Nothing broken. But let me not jinx myself. So the brake pads come off next. This is brittle. Same thing happened on the driver's side. Broken pieces. And these brake pads have a lot of life left on them. But it is the rotor itself that is the problem. The rotor is warped, meaning that there are high spots and low spots on the rotor. And every time you hit the brake pedal, the brake pads will hit that high and low spot, and that will cause a vibration every time you hit the brakes. On the driver's side, the rotor was rusty and it was rough, so resurfacing was not an option. I really don't like to resurface rotors. I'd rather replace them. But if I am in a pinch, then I will resurface rotors. But this time, I will be replacing them. It's an old car, it's a 2011. I'd just rather get some fresh parts on here. So now I'm just removing this bracket right here. And then once I remove this bracket, I'll be able to take the rotor off. And thank God this is nice and loose. feels nice to just have a job go extremely smooth for once. Looks like there's a little bit of anti-season on here. I guess that's why it's going really smooth. All right, let's get this bottom one off now. I think for the most part, those were my major struggles with this car. That's good too. I remember, well, while I was trying to install a new motor, waiting on parts, being bored, decided to completely rip the interior out, because when I first got this car, it was a complete mess. There was glitter everywhere. There was food and candy, crumbs all over the place, toys, tampons. This side is not as bad as the driver's side. All right, hub is not as rusty as the driver's side. But no, ripped the interior apart, took the seats out, took the rear seat out, took the center console out, and I ended up ripping the carpet out so that I can take it out, vacuum it, shampoo it, get it nice and cleaned up, put it back in the car. But as I was waiting on other parts to come in, my seats got damaged, and I was able to save the rear seat bench, but I was not able to save the front seats because they got moldy and water got inside of them. So I ended up buying some junkyard seats. So I'm going to try my best to clean up this rust on here and on the bracket itself. So I'm going to try to clean up this area right here, clean up this area in between. Same thing right here on this side. These pins are supposed to move, and they are moving quite easily. Saw the same thing on the driver's side. So this is fantastic. So be back in a few minutes. All right. So this truly is going smooth, and it is quite wonderful. So I'm going to throw this new rotor on and start putting everything back together. I was able to get most of the rust off. Cleaned off as much rust as I possibly could on the bracket. And this looks like it's gonna go like this. Yep. Got to make sure these holes line up so that this bolt can go back in. This truly is wonderful. The only other job that goes this smoothly on this car is the oil change. That should, oh, I see why it was kind of sticking out. Maybe I spoke too soon. See if the other hole will bolt all the way down. If it doesn't, then oh well. I'm still happy I got everything off with ease. And this other side also doesn't want to. Well, I'm gonna get it in as far as I can so that the rotor can be held in place as I put the bracket back on. But if this is the only thing I have to worry about, I will not complain. I will take it as it is. Gonna start putting the shims on. Never seen this kind of setup for shims. You have this piece right here that goes in the middle like that. Yep, right in there. Sorry. Well, whatever. It goes in that middle piece, gets held down in there. And then you have these smaller ones that go right on that surface right there. I'm gonna put these on. I think I'll put the little ones on first. Probably make it easier. I hope, maybe, quite possibly. So it should look like this. So this is the middle piece, and then you got the two shims right there. Gonna do the same thing for the top portion. Gotta make sure it's installed evenly, because essentially what's gonna happen is that the brake pad is going to sit on this portion, and this portion is going to hold it in place. So I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Put my smaller shims on first, and then put that center piece in. Make sure it's installed evenly. And then one last time, check my slide pins. They are moving real easily. That is wonderful. And then these will go on last right before you put the caliper back on. Let's see. I need grease. So, brake grease, brake lubricant, whatever they want to call it. This lubricant goes on the mating surface. Well, contact points. So right there, there, wherever the brakes make contact or brake pads make contact. So right here and right here. I believe this brake pad in particular will go on the inside right here, because this is the wear indicator. Once the brake pads get to a point to where this makes contact with the rotor, it'll start to squeak, letting you know that you need to replace your brakes. So let's lubricate the contact points. And then once the contact points on the bracket is lubricated, I will reinstall the bracket. I think for the most part, I think I told you guys most of my struggle for the most part. The most challenging thing was getting the engine in and out of the car. The proper way to remove the engine is to remove the entire front suspension and subframe, and the engine and transmission will remain bolted to the frame. Struts, all these front suspension components come down, and the body of the car is lifted up as it separates from everything that you unbolted. So it's greased up. So let's put this back on. So that's how you are supposed to remove the engine if you have a lift, but I did it right here in this garage, so a lift was not available to me. I definitely did it the wrong way. I yanked the engine out through the top, which is what you're not supposed to do if you don't have a lift available. What you are supposed to do is remove the front bumper remove the core support, basically remove everything from the front of the car, and then remove the engine by pulling it towards the front of the car. And I was able to get it out through the top. I was able to squeeze it out through the top, but I knew that I would not be able to squeeze it back in through the top. So I had to take the bumper off. All right. I don't have the proper torque stick, so I'm just going to be using this breaker bar. Somewhat light force on it, just enough to tighten it. So that should be good. Next thing that goes on is the brake pads. So I'm going to lubricate the brake pads. Well, yeah, been working on this car for a while, if you couldn't tell. I've been working on this thing for almost 2 years. It took me about 1.5 years to get it back on the road. Got one more brake pad to lubricate. This is probably the trickiest part of the whole thing. Well, not the lubrication part, but getting the brake pad installed again. So a little bit of a challenge here. That is out way too far. I need to push this back in. I think the other sides are good. So this is kind of the tricky part here, trying to reinstall the brake pads. Because this bottom portion right here where I'm pushing on, where you see this part moving, that truly does hold the brake pad in place. Okay, now I got to do the inner part. All right, brake pads are back on. Before I put these little guys on, so before I put these things on, I'm going to compress the piston. Gonna push that back in, and it would be a lot easier if I had an old brake pad. I know it's not the right tool, but it's what I got. All right. I need a brake pad. All right. Piston has been pushed back in. And now we can add these small pieces. Oh, right there. So that's the bottom one. And then there's one more that goes on top. And then put the caliper back on as you hold the brake pads. Now we can bolt this back on. All right, my bottom one right there. And then get my tool. That's snug. That's snug. That's tight. And that's tight. So that's pretty much it. The last thing to do is to put the wheel back on, pump up the brake pedal, and test drive. So that's all I got for this video. So thanks for watching.